Hey, what's going on guys? Cookies here. This is how to heal Plaguefall. We are going to do an invis skip here at the beginning, so I will preface this with me not being able to properly go over the little mushroom mobs here, but I will talk about them briefly as we pass by them. And the big guy to our left right here that usually gets pulled in like pug groups and stuff at the beginning here, you can just look in the like little chapters or timestamps down below the video and just find the part where I talk about him later in the dungeon because there's a decaying flesh giant like later in the dungeon that we fight. Okay, so just real quick, these mushroom packs, the only guys that we care about as a healer is the Fungi Stormers. I think there's one per pack of mushroom guys, and all they do is channel an ability called Fungi Storm, and it just needs to. You can't properly you can't regularly interrupt it, so you just need to use some kind of crowd control, stun, anything like that to break them out of casting it, and it just does a bunch of unavoidable damage to the entire group. So just interrupt that, and it will save your life rather than forcing yourself to actually heal through it. But other than that, none of the other mushroom ads matter at all. They don't do anything. So this first pack here with all the gushing slimes, they just do AoE damage to everybody around them. Every couple seconds, you can see like right here, the monk already taking damage from standing by them. So when you're in melee with them, just be aware that they are going to do damage to you. And the more of them that you have pulled together, the more damage that it's going to be for people that are up close to them. And other than that, they don't do anything. These Plague Belchers, they just do a frontal, so don't need to worry too much about that. It just faces towards the tank, so just avoid that. Nothing that we need to watch as a healer. So we're going to skip ahead a little bit, and we're going to talk about these packs down here. So the first very important thing that we're going to talk about is these Plagueborers right here that our tank is going to pull first. So these Plagueborers right here, these Wretched Plagueborers, they are going to cast Wretched Phlegm, and it targets whoever they're aggroed to, which is typically going to be the tank, obviously. And what this does is it's a uninterruptible cast. You can, however, stop it with, again, crowd control stuns. That usually works on almost everything. And if the cast goes off, it will do a ton of damage to the tank. Like on Fortified Week, this ability hits so hard. Wretched Phlegm hits the tank for so much damage. So you really want to use stuff to either interrupt them or, I guess, stop them from casting. Or, fun fact, as paladins who are watching this video, you can Hand of Freedom on their target, so on the tank. Like right here, I freedom the tank, this Wretched Phlegm goes off, it does no damage. If the cast does go off and you don't stun them, or you don't stop the cast in any way, or you don't freedom it, it's going to do a bunch of damage to the tank, and then it's also going to apply a poison debuff that's like a really big slow on the tank, so be aware to dispel that if they do have it, or help them in some way. Let's see. Other than that, you have the Spinebreaker. That's the big guy that we just killed. When he dies, he's going to drop all these slithering oozes on the floor, and they cast Metamorphosis over the next 20 seconds. You can use crowd controls or stuns, or like as a paladin, for instance, I use Blinding Light, so I go and stand in between all of them and then cast Blinding Light, and it gets all 5 of them, or 6 of them, however many there are. And as long as you interrupt them one time, they'll never cast again, and they'll just like walk in place here and eventually despawn. And then you don't have to step on them, because the other way that you stop them from casting is by stepping on them, and it instant kills them, but it does a decent amount of damage to whoever stepped on them. So heal whoever is stepping on them, or use crowd control and avoid stepping on them. Pestilence Slime, it just does a cast. If the cast goes off, it does damage to the entire group. So need to AoE heal if those casts are going off. And then we'll move up here and talk about the boss. So this boss has, I believe, just one major mechanic really that does damage to the group, which is the Stomp. So here he's going to do it in a second. He does Plague Stomp, and again, fun fact, if you're a paladin, you can bop the Plague Stomp, and the person won't get knocked back. Like there, I bopped the Druid, he doesn't get knocked back. And then after the Stomp, everybody who got hit is going to get this debuff on them. It's a disease dispel, so that means only paladins, priests, and monks, I believe, can get it. So you just want to dispel whoever you think is the most impacted by a slow debuff, or whoever is taking the most damage, because it does do a decent amount of damage over time. So you want to keep dispelling on cooldown if you can, if you feel like you need to. And then the main point of this boss is just keep the group full health by the time the next Plague Stomp happens. So you can see right here, the next Plague Stomp is in 15 seconds. I don't know if that's actually accurate. I think he might do it before then. I guess we'll see. Because he should do it here. Maybe the timer is correct. Maybe I just haven't paid attention to it. Yeah, I guess it is. So here the Plague Stomp is going to happen again. Should be happening any second now. And we just want to make sure that everybody is as close to full health as they can be. The tank we're not too concerned about because he's nice and healthy. Like, he has so much HP anyways to sit through. Because the Plague Stomp does a ton of damage. Like, this is a fortified key, and we take like 80% of our health and damage with the Plague Stomp. So just keeping the group nice and full health for each Plague Stomp will make sure that you don't fall behind when these disease debuffs go out. Because if you're not full HP, and then you also get a debuff after getting stomped, and you have 5 people with the debuff and you're not dispelling and stuff like that, that's when you're going to fall behind and you're going to start struggling on this boss. So just stay ahead, keep everybody healthy for the Plague Stomps, and dispel as much as you can on the debuffs. And that's pretty much it. Sorry if I'm clearing my throat. I literally have recorded like 3 of these back to back, so I've been talking for about an hour and a half now straight. Okay, so next up we have the Slimeclaws, the Rotting Slimeclaws. So they are going to cast Corroded Claws on their target, or whoever's closest to them is how they usually work sometimes. So when this goes on the tank, we interrupted the other 2, but it applies 1 stack of a debuff, and the debuff just needs to be dispelled if you have a disease dispel. If you don't have a disease dispel, the tank is going to get very, very squishy very quickly because the Corroded Claws debuffs removes stats from the person that has the debuff, and it stacks like infinitely basically, so they can just keep getting lower and lower stats. So like right here, the tank has 2. But the reason that I'm going to be waiting to dispel is because we also pulled this Plagueroc. So the Plagueroc does Blighted Beak, I believe it's called. It'll be after this frontal. So it should be right about here. Blight Beak. And what that does is apply, again, another disease dispel debuff on the tank. And that needs to be dispelled instantly because it lowers health. And if we don't dispel that, then the tank like definitely is going to just fall over immediately. So I wait for the Blight Beak to go out, and then I dispel the claws on top of it because it will just dispel it all at the same time. But if I like dispel these claws right now, for instance, like I think the monk dispelled him there. But if I were to dispel him, then I wouldn't have my dispel back up in time for the Blight Beak, which is a bigger problem. So dispel Blight Beak, dispel Corroded Claws. But Blight Beak takes priority. Cool. And then we already talked about the Wretched Plagueborers. So we have the Plaguebinders next, which pop up quite a bit throughout the dungeon. They'll just do constant random casts that need to be interrupted. They do Gripping Infection. If that goes off, it just roots a player and does a large amount of damage as long as they have the root on them. So it's a magic dispel, so any healer can just dispel the root. But we have to be careful of using our dispel on these things because of all the other stuff that we, like if we're the disease dispel for the tank, we need to be aware that we need to be saving our dispel for the tank and not for the grips. So you want to use other utility like druids. If you get targeted by it, you can shapeshift out of it, out of the root. If you're a paladin, you can freedom, so on and so forth. So try to use stuff like that first before dispelling if you can. Next up, we have the Rotmarrow Slimes. These just do a cast, and then I'm trying to see the exact name, but the explosive's in the way. Here they go. But when they do this cast, it applies a disease. Again, we're following the same suit of disease dispels. It applies a disease to everybody around them, so you can see right there, the tank and the monk got it because they're in melee, and I'm standing out here with range. And it just applies a stacking debuff, so like if multiple cast goes off, then the people are going to get multiple stacks, and it does a lot of it. Does, like, even with just 1 stack, you can see it ticking on the monk for a decent amount. So you want to be dispelling this as much as possible, especially on people who can't dispel themselves. Like the monk can dispel himself, so that's why I'm not dispelling him, and I dispel the tank instead. Or like, for instance, if I got a stack, like I'm going to get one right here, I think. No, we actually interrupted that at the last second. But I would dispel myself because the monk can dispel himself. And then here we have like 4 people get it, so this is where I'm just going to be like, okay, I need to focus on healing this up and dispelling people one at a time, and so on. So that's the Rotmarrow Slimes. These are all packs that we've already seen. These are packs that we've seen. Don't need to talk about the slime tentacles. They are not very important, I don't think. Blightweaver is the same. You can pretty much treat him almost the exact same as the the binders, the Plaguebinders. So we don't need to worry too much about him. He just does random casts, and these diseases that he puts on people are not very relevant, so we don't need to worry about those. So we'll go ahead and skip ahead a little bit more. Already fought all these. Defenders aren't very important. They don't do any healer-related stuff, but they they have a barrier that they put down, so you just want to use some kind of crowd control to break them out of it. The Congealed Slime here I will talk about. These are very important. So the Congealed Slime are the purple slimes. They cast Withering Filth on a random player, and if this goes off, you can see this purple circle around our tank. If this cast goes off, it's going to hit the tank and everybody inside of this circle with a large, just initial burst of damage, and then it's also going to apply a magic dispel debuff to everybody that reduces their haste by 50%, which is absolutely atrocious. So having your haste reduced that low is very bad, so if it goes off, dispel the people who have the debuff, and stay out of the circle if you see this spawning and you're not interrupting it. And the way you interrupt it is, again, with stuns or crowd control of some sort on the slime. You can't actually use regular interrupts. Okay, and then for this boss, there is only, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, there's only one important thing on this boss, but I'm going to talk about 2 things, but there's only one healer-specific thing. So the tank is going to get a dispellable debuff. You can see it right there. I'm actually going to skip to the second platform because it'll be a little less chaotic, I think. And I'm going to skip ahead of this stuff. So the tank is going to get a dispellable debuff. I don't know if he's actually going to get it here because we're going to push. Okay, I'll go back to the start of the fight. So you can see the dispellable debuff on the tank like right as the fight starts. It is called, the debuff that the boss, or the cast that the boss does is called Slime Injection. I don't know if that's what the debuff is also called. It might be. That's not it. We'll wait for it to happen. Here he goes. And there it is, Slime Injection, and it puts a debuff on the tank. This should be dispelled immediately. I don't know why I didn't dispel it immediately. I just wasn't paying attention or something. But this debuff needs to be dispelled the moment it goes on the tank because it does a very, very heavy amount of damage the longer they have it. And then after you dispel them, it will spawn this little slime right here, this erupting ooze on the floor, and someone just needs to step on it before it blows up. Or just kill it with like cleave damage and stuff. And then the boss is going to jump platforms. He's going to spawn a purple ad, which is the Congealed Slime that we talked about earlier. And the Plague Bomb, we just need to kill that before it blows up. And then we just need to watch for, like we said, the Slime Injection. So there it is again, Slime Injection. I dispel it immediately. And then the boss is going to do these leaps right here that you see. He's going to do a giant green swirly on the floor and jump to it. Now, the way that these work, the best way of me describing this is by using this pen tool real quick. Hopefully I don't screw this up too hard. Oh, well, I already closed out of my thing. Let's see. I need to go like this and move it. Go like that. And then I think I can do it like this. Okay, cool. So, let's see if this works. Sorry about that. I'm trying to fix this. I haven't really used this very much. So the way that this works is the boss is going to jump, and when he lands, he's going to create this cross formation on the floor based on where he landed. So there, he makes like a cross of green swirlies. If you're in this, you pretty much die, so you want to stay out of it. The way that you predict where the swirlies are going to come from, like where the cross formation is going to come out of, is 2 ways. You either look at his backpack, which is very easy to see. It's like this green, this vibrant green backpack of slime. And that will be the line. So like here, he's landing. So that means the line's going to go like this, and like that, and like that, and like that. Because you can like almost predict that it's shooting out of his back, if that makes sense. So here I go back to playing it, And there you go. You can see before I turned my camera, it was basically lined up exactly. Another way is when he jumps. So he'll do it again here. Let's wait till he does it again. So when he jumps, I'm going to actually go to the next platform because that jump was like he literally just jumped on top of where he already was standing. So when he jumps here, the other way is you see where he jumped from. Because if he jumps from this location where he's standing to his new location, you can use that as which way he's facing. So like right there, he jumps from the green slime to here. So that means that the lines, I know this like pin is not very thick, but the line would go like this, if that makes sense. So hopefully that makes a bit of sense. I think I'm gonna end up turning my camera, but you get the idea. So there it is, and it goes exactly how I had it set lined up if you go back a little bit. So that's the two ways that I use to dodge, is I either look at his backpack and just use that as the back line and then just make like a cross formation from that, or I watch where he jumped from. Like here he's jumping from over here to here, so again it's gonna shoot out from that direction that he just came from. Cool. So that is that boss. What else do we have to talk about? Oh, here's the big guy that we didn't talk about earlier. So this is the Decaying Flesh Giant. The only thing you need to know about as a healer is he needs to be interrupted. He casts Creepy Crawlies, or Crawlers, and if that's not interrupted, it's going to spawn all these little adds on the tank, and the tank will take a ton of damage. So if that cast successfully goes off, keep the tank alive, press an external, do something to help the tank stay alive. The only other thing important in this pack is the Venomous Snipers. They will cast Shoot on random players and do a ton of damage, and they just keep doing that. They literally just spam cast Shoot over and over and over and over, and it does a like right there. You can literally just see me get hit by it. It does so much damage, and this is because it's raging, but it did like 75% of my health and damage right here. I get targeted, boom. So kill snipers, stun snipers, and keep the group nice and healthy for the random targeted shoots. I'm gonna go ahead and skip ahead a little more. The next guys that we have are these ambushers here. And the only thing that they do is cast ambush on random people. They'll jump on top of them and deal damage to them and everyone around them. So you just don't want to be too stacked up as a group. You want to kind of stay a little bit apart from each other so that you don't get cleaved by the ambush ability. And then the ambusher's going to spawn these stealth things right here. And when they spawn, they'll go stealth, like they'll disappear. And then you need to reveal them with AoE damage or abilities, and then you need to stop them from casting. Like there you saw all of them casting. Where did they go? I'll just wait till they spawn again. So when they spawn, there they are. They cast Ambush. There's like 10 of them or something. And if this cast goes off, they'll jump to players just like the ambushers do and do a ton of damage because there's just so many ambushes. So you want to make sure that you stun this, or crowd control, like Blinding Light again for Paladin specifically is really good. Cap Totem on Shaman, Typhoon on Druids, stuff like that. And then I think that covers all the mobs up here. So then we'll just talk about the boss. So this boss just does a poison debuff on the tank that needs to be dispelled. So if you have a poison dispel, then you want to be using that. That's monks, druids, and paladins, I believe. So there it is. I think the druid's our tank's dispelling himself, so that's why you'll not see me dispelling him very often here. And then the other ability is people will get targeted by this shadow ambush ability. And I'll just rewind it a tiny bit so you can see it a little bit better. So it'll go on the monk here. So it should happen right about now. There's shadow ambush. It does, after a delay, it's going to blow up. You'll see him counting down. He's kind of hidden behind my frames. But 3, 2, 1, and then it blows up and does damage to everybody inside of that pink circle and stuns them. So just keep that person healthy, and if they don't press a defensive or have anything available, or if they're a very squishy class, consider using something on them to protect them, or like some kind of external to reduce their damage taken. And then the times where abilities are most dangerous are when these adds are alive. So when all these adds spawn, the tank's going to be taking more damage, especially if he has the poison debuff on him. So if you don't have a way to dispel that, this is the time to use externals on the tank. And this is also the best time to use healing cooldowns, is while these adds are alive, because people are getting randomly targeted by them when they're being broken out. Like right here, you can see the druid has an extra debuff from getting hit by one of the adds when they were hidden. So the people who are having to take the Shadow Ambush debuff out are going to be taking potentially extra damage from the ads as well. So you just want to be ready to keep the group nice and healthy during those ad phases. And that's pretty much it for this boss. So next up we go downstairs. None of the stuff in here is important whatsoever, so we'll just skip to the boss. Okay, Margrave Stradama, big problem boss for a lot of healers. So the way you want to heal this boss is just plan ahead for every Infectious Rain. The Infectious Rain is all that does damage to people. You'll see her casting it right now. So she's casting Infectious Rain. It's going to apply a disease debuff to all of us 4 times. We'll get 4 stacks of the debuff. And then if you have access to a disease dispel, you want to be pressing it. And you also want to press things like defensives. So the best way of dealing with this fight as a healer is planning your healing cooldowns for each Infectious Rain that presents a problem to you, which the ones that I find most problematic is you'll get one, I guess I should say in the average group, you'll get 1 Infectious Rain in phase 1, 1 Infectious Rain in phase 2, and 2 Infectious Rains in phase 3. So phase 3 is by far the hardest, so you need to have things up for there. But I would also say that phase 2, you should also have something rolling. Like here I have Ashen rolling for when the Infectious Rain happens. And then also if you have a disease dispel, wait until like 3 or 4 of the stacks go out on everybody, and then to choose to dispel somebody. Whether it's yourself, whether it's the squishiest player in the group, whether it's somebody who doesn't have defensive, something like that. So we didn't get one there. We actually skipped the Infectious Rain because we did enough damage to the boss. You'll see that happen sometimes. And then in phase 3, the difference that you need to be aware of is as soon as she comes up from the intermission, she's pretty much going to do, because usually the Infectious Rains don't happen for like 20 seconds or 15 seconds into each phase. But in phase 3, she does one right away. So here she comes up, and watch, she's going to do an Infectious Rain like almost immediately. So here it goes, right about now. So now she's casting it. That's a lot faster than all the other phases, so you need to be ready for this. This is the one that usually throws people off. So this is where I'm using Bubble on myself. I used Bop on the monk just to reduce his damage taken. Bop doesn't do anything specific, it's just a damage reduction if you have the conduit. And then she's going to do one more Infectious Rain right here at the very end of the fight, and this is where I would use, like, I should be using, you know, Aura Mastery, Sack, all that stuff, but we end up killing her fast enough. So that's the idea, is plan ahead with your cooldowns and make sure you have 2 sets of cooldowns for the last phase, because you're going to need one for the first rain and another cooldown for the second rain. So hopefully that helped you guys with Plaguefall. I hope you're enjoying patch 9.2, and thank you so much for watching this video. See you guys later.